Hey everybody, you got the Hobby Drifter here again. It is Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 here in cloudy Tokyo, Japan. The cicadas are chirping, it's really humid, and I'm trying to wake myself up with this video and this can of Boss Rainbow Mountain Blend coffee. This video is not sponsored, I just like this coffee. It's a double espresso, it gives me enough energy to get through basically my entire day, and hopefully this video. So in part one of this series, I talked about, getting to Japan and finding a job to get you started. In this video, I'm going to talk about the types of jobs that you might wind up at. For me personally, I started as an ALT, which is short for Assistant Language Teacher. That title can be very misleading, especially for elementary school ALTs who are basically the primary teacher in the lesson. Junior high school and high school ALTs do sometimes get relegated to the old human tape recorder stereotype, but that is getting better. So this first place I worked, ALT company in Kitakyushu, fairly large-sized place, not like Interac big, but fairly large. They had between 50 and 100 teachers across the city, and decent place to work. They paid about the average, which at the time was about 250,000 yen per month, but only 11 months out of the year. You weren't paid for August because you didn't work in August. So August was the time when most of the teachers would either go and travel around Asia or go back to visit family or whatever. So they would take your 25 mon, your 250,000 yen per month payment, and then split it into 12 pieces. So you got 11 months of pay out of the year. You also got 2 weeks of paid holiday, sick days, and all national and prefectural holidays. Fairly good job as far as on-the-job training goes. They would teach you. We would have meetings every month about this, that, and the other thing. But it was a lot of every school is different, every teacher is different, every student is different. So a lot of it was just while you were on the job figuring out the best way to do what you had to do. I stayed at that job for about 5 years in 3 different prefectures. I worked for the company in Kitakyushu for about 3 years. Had a really, really good time there. Met some very nice people. The teachers were very good. The schools were very good. I worked at one school that was, it reminded me of like a Zelda dungeon because the only entrance was up this narrow staircase going up into like nature. So that was fun. I was also at the first 3 years. I only worked at one school per year. So most ALTs will work at several schools. I think 3 is usually the average, but it could be 5. Sometimes it's a lot more, and I'll get to that. But I only worked at the one school at a time, which was great because I got to know all the other teachers. I got to know the students. I got to, I felt like a part of the staff room, which is, I even got invited to the school, the end of the year teacher trip, which they said, hey, you want to go to an onsen? And I was like, yeah. I didn't know what the hell an onsen was, so I was very surprised when we got there, and then everyone got naked and started drinking beer. So, if you don't know, onsen is like a public bath. This one was in this beautiful hotel on like an open rooftop public bath type thing, overlooking the entire city, and then behind that there was the ocean. And you were in like this, volcanically heated hot spring, drinking beer with your coworkers, which fun, more fun than I was expecting. Never did it again. Glad I did it one time. That was at a school where nobody really spoke English. and my Japanese was still coming along, so it was very much just, it's like, okay, here's the pool, take off your clothes, drink this beer, all right. So that was fun. That was about 3 years. Felt like a teacher. One of the teachers there was trying to learn English. I was trying to learn Japanese. We helped each other. She helped me pass the JLPT. I helped her get her tour guide license. It was nice. Very nice. Then, after those 3 years, they asked if I would be okay with going to a place called Izuka. And Izuka is a much more rural place in Fukuoka Prefecture where I worked at 3 schools. Did not enjoy my time in Izuka very much because it was boring. It's really, really rural. There wasn't much to do except for hang out in like dive bars or go shopping at the one like shopping mall in the area. I mean, there were no movie theaters. Any of the karaoke places were like snack bar type places, which are really expensive and also not private and not very welcoming. However, it did have a thriving Korean community, and if you are into Korean food, you were spoiled for choice in Izuka. But I only stayed there for about 6 months because I ran into some trouble at one of the schools. We did not get off on the right foot. They didn't particularly want an ALT. They basically just ignored me when I was in the staff room, and then they kind of used that as an excuse to be like, oh, he's not friendly. He doesn't talk to us. When I was just feeling nervous because I was in a room with like 50 Japanese teachers, most of whom either ignored me or looked like they hated me. So they were like, we would like to change our teacher. And the company was like, well, this could work out for the best of us because they knew I didn't really like Izuka. Although I did like the giant apartment that got me there. It was 50,000 yen per month, but it was like a 3 LDK. So like three bedroom, living room, kitchen, dining room. Huge place. I don't think I've lived in a bigger place since then. But, so the company said, well, you don't really like this place. They don't really like you. Fair. We need someone to start teaching our pilot program in Hiroshima, Japan. And they needed it for, because they were basically starting elementary school English classes, which hadn't really been a thing regularly in Hiroshima up till that point. So they said, do you want to go to Hiroshima? And I said, yeah. When should I go? And they said, tomorrow? So I had one day to pack up my apartment and move to Hiroshima, where I didn't teach at one school. I didn't teach at 3 schools. I taught at 50 schools. I taught at 50 different schools in Hiroshima City. And the way that worked was that each school only had an ALT for English class once a month, and there was like a 2-month circuit. So I think it wound up being like more than 10,000 students in the 2 years I was in Hiroshima. But it was elementary school, which is very, very different. At the junior high schools, you could contribute ideas to the class, but a lot of it was just look at the card, repeat after me, let the Japanese teacher of English, the JTE, diagram the sentence. You say it, they repeat. You say it, they repeat. Not exactly the most fulfilling work, in my opinion. In elementary school, they gave you like an outline of the class, and they gave me like an outline of what they wanted, and then just kind of left it up to me on how to do it. And I loved this because it was basically, here's a topic, here are some of the grammar points we'd like you to hit. Do it. And that was a great time because, you got to, my personality got to come out. I got to make it fun. I got to workshop stuff because, you're doing basically the same lesson 20 times. So at the end of those 20 times, you'd kind of worked all the kinks out. And this was still pre-smartphone, so, finding all of these different schools was sometimes a challenge. I remember there was one time I had to go to a school up in the mountains, and I got off the bus, and I'm looking at my map trying to figure out where the hell the school is. Like walking down the sidewalk, when a bus comes by, and the very useful public transportation system all over most of Japan is great, except they've got these side view mirrors that are about, I don't know, let's say close to 6 feet off the ground, and they stick out from the bus. I'm a very tall person, so I'm not paying attention. I'm looking at my map, trying to figure out where to go, and this bus comes down, and just the side mirror thing just clocks me in the back of the head, gives me like the terrible concussion. And I got a job to do, so I'm still trying to figure out where to go. And I find the school, and I walk in, and I introduce myself to the teacher's room, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Kevin. Nice to meet everybody. Yoroshiku." And they're like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got hit by a bus like 5 minutes ago. Like, well, you've got a class in like 5 minutes." I was like, cool. And it, I killed it. It was a great. The teachers had fun. The kids had fun, and they were able to practice whatever the grammar point was. I don't remember much about that day, other than that the teachers were very happy that the guy with the concussion was still willing to teach the classes. So yeah, I got to see a whole bunch of Hiroshima City by working at these 50 different schools. Got to work on making myself a better teacher, and I didn't really like young kids at the time. Kind of embarrassed to say, but by the third or fourth month of doing this, I was like, oh man, I love teaching English to kids. Like this is super fun. Not a whole lot else in Hiroshima. We basically built the lesson curriculum. We showed that this was how it could be done, and then at the end of the 18 months there, the Board of Education said, "Well, you've done your company has done a wonderful job. The students like you, the teachers like you, the English ability is going up. The students are excited to learn, but this other company will do it cheaper." So they cut ties with my company. I think they gave it to Interac, and I mean they did this with very little time to spare. That's one thing that really put me off on Interac and on the Hiroshima Board of Education, and that is that when we were told that Interac was going to be taking the contract, Interac had already hired teachers to replace us. So it wasn't even like we could just go from one company to the other. We weren't offered. Like the company didn't say, "Oh, I should back up for a second." In Kitakyushu, sometimes the contracts would bounce around, and what the companies would usually do would be like, "Oh, hey, teachers, we've got the contract for your schools this year. Would you like to come work for us?" And it was just basically that was how it was done. But in Hiroshima, They just, put the entire group of, I think it was 12 of us, just unemployed, like immediately, just like, contract's gone. And when that happens, you've got to kind of scramble for things like a new job to keep your visa, to keep your housing, because usually the company not only sponsors your visa, but they sponsor your apartment. Something that Interac would go on to do in Kitakyushu a little while later was this kind of thing happened again, and the teachers were told, oh yeah, we're no longer sponsoring your housing, so you don't have a place to live from next month. Which, kind of scummy. Like, I don't want to talk shit about Interac, but that was not cool. But my company, again, said, okay, the jobs are going away in Hiroshima. Would you like to come back to Kitakyushu? And yeah, they said, okay, so we'll bring you back to Kitakyushu in Fukuoka, and we're assuming you want to go back to teaching junior high school. And I said, no, actually, I'm really having fun teaching elementary school. I think I'm better at it, so I would, if possible, I'd like to keep doing that. And the other side of the line went quiet for a second. They're like, really? Great. That's awesome. We don't have a lot of experienced. We don't have a lot of people with your experience who want to teach elementary school. So I came back to Fukuoka, to Kitakyushu, to teach for one more year in Kitakyushu. And it was very, very good. I got 4 schools, all near my the place that I used to live. Very good locations, good places around there. So like before or after work, you could grab a drink or get dinner, do your shopping, whatever. The schools were great. The people were great, and yeah, it was some of the best teaching I had ever done, because they gave me just a ton of freedom. As long as I followed the basic rule of don't teach them how to read or write, which is weird, and don't use Japanese in class, I could do pretty much what I wanted, and they really enjoyed that. However, that year, they also had a change with the Board of Education, where instead of 11 paychecks spread across 12 months, it was now going to be 8 paychecks spread across 12 months. Or, in fact, I think that they weren't even going to do that. It was just going to be certain months you didn't get a check, which would have been difficult, because, I mean, like I say, the housing and stuff in that area is fairly inexpensive, but to lose, what does that work out to, like $7,000 out of your check, 25% just gone, could be tough. Like a lot of people supplemented it with private students, which you're legally not supposed to do, but even the company was okay with it. My wife, who has much more common sense than I do, says to me, well, if it's going to be that much trouble, why don't you just change your job? And I thought, change my job? But I was lucky to get this job. It was just dumb luck that I got here in the first place. And she's like, yeah, but that was 5 years ago. You're not just some schlub off the street anymore. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I went and applied at an eikaiwa, a children's eikaiwa. And eikaiwa is translates to like conversation school or conversation meeting, and it's instead of being part of the public school system, it's like an extracurricular thing. So kids finish school in the afternoon, and then they come to a specialized English lesson. These ones had offices in malls all over Japan, except Tokyo, which is important. So I went to work for this place, or I applied for a job at this place, and this interview was different. So I applied online, and I was offered an interview, I think, the next day. Like, I put in the interview online, and the next day, like, oh, we'd like to talk to you. So I went in for the interview, and, I wasn't really nervous anymore, because I knew, like, what to do for, I knew that they didn't want, super serious businessmen. And I mean, like, I was doing magic tricks, like, during the interview, because they gave me, like, they said do, like, a demo lesson. So I was doing, like, magic tricks, to get the point across of stuff. The interviewer was like, do you just carry around, like, magic tricks? And I'm like, yeah, you never know. He was like, do you do these in class? And I was like, oh, yes. You gotta grab the kids, grab their attention. Oh, okay. Finished the interview, went home, made dinner, and about an hour later, phone rings, and I was like, hi, we'd like to offer you the job. Can you start in a couple of weeks? And I was like, yes, awesome, thank you. I said, yeah, of course, thank you. And so I went in for the training, and it was actual training. Not as much, every class, every school is different. They were teaching me techniques, like child psychology type techniques, like how to present stuff, the order of presenting stuff. So that, mixed with the experience of just me blundering my way through this stuff for years, these were some of the best classes I had ever taught. It was only for kids. I think the oldest kids were in like 5th or 6th grade. And then there were toddler classes, baby classes, kindergarten classes. I worked, I don't even know how many different places. It was 20 or more schools. All of them in shopping malls. So I had this weird disconnect. It was like, on the one hand, I am an experienced teacher. I have this, good job. But also, I work at the mall. So that was weird disconnect. But I mean, I worked with wonderful teachers. The kids were great. Training was good. Money was much, much better. It was more money. Not much more money, but more money, 12 full months of pay. Plus, they also helped with things like health insurance and pension and things like that. More sick days, more vacation days. Still didn't take any of those. It was pretty sweet, especially for me, living in Fukuoka, in Kitakyushu, around there, where the cost of living was much lower. The salary was pretty good. I actually worked it out to, if necessary, my wife didn't necessarily have to work. But she liked working. She likes working, which is unfortunately why I wound up having to leave this job that I absolutely loved. Also this job, the schedule was, you got Mondays off. You had to work Saturday, but you got Mondays off. So any like banking items or things like that could be taken care of every week without having to take time off work. But I had to leave. I had to leave that gig, and my wife took a very exciting job in Tokyo, the big city in Tokyo. So I applied to another ALT gig in Tokyo. And much like the other, the Eikaiwa gig, I scheduled my interview for the day I arrived in Tokyo, had the job offered to me before the end of the day. Because now I've got 6-7 years of experience doing all of this. This place in Tokyo sucked. I did not want to take this job at all. I mean, it was no paid holidays, no sick days, only a 10-month contract instead of 12. So it was only 10 paychecks, prorated. So if it was a month where you didn't work, the full 20-something days, you were basically paid daily. The pay was criminally low. And they did a thing where like your base payment was like $1,000 a month, but if you came to work every day without problems, you got a bonus of like another $1,000. But if you had to take a sick day or something like that, not only would you not get paid for that day because there were no sick days, you'd also lose part of that bonus. So like if you get sick and you have to go to a doctor, you're looking at that's like $200 or $300 out of your pocket. This absolutely sucked, and I did not want to take the job. But my wife was like, "Oh, you got to get your foot in the door. You got to get something here. You don't want any blanks on your time off. So just stick with it. Do it for a year." And they had me working in Akihabara. They had a school in Akihabara. And the schools weren't bad, but the company was just awful. Just the worst ALT company I have ever worked for. The family that owned it was just terrible. They tried to screw me out of some money on my way out the door, and basically in order to get it, I had to say I'm going to come in and get it if you don't give it to me. They kind of dragged me around for a little while, and I'm like, "Why are you ditching my calls?" And they said, "Oh, sorry, we're facing a tough time. Our lawyer died." It's like, okay, that's a shame. Like, we appreciate your sympathy. And I go, "No, you don't understand. I don't have any sympathy. Your lawyer died, and if you don't give me my money, you're going to need one." So finally I got my money just by being like, "I'm going to come in there and I'm going to take it from you." Which, if you guys don't know me, but that's not me. I don't do that. But finally I got it, and I went to a different ALT company, which was better, but still awful. This company tried its hardest. They didn't try to screw with people, but they let themselves get jerked around by the Board of Education at every turn. So pay was higher. I believe we got 2 sick days. Still the same, only 10-month contract, but they weren't prorated. And meetings were helpful. They did, but basically the Board of Education at this point was just trying to squeeze as much money out of these companies as possible. So they would do things like they would tell the company to tell the teachers to do something, and then once the teachers did that, another person from the Board of Education would complain that, why are they doing this? They shouldn't be doing this. And they did that basically as an excuse to, hit them on contract negotiations the next year. This is also when they started hiring basically people to do this job for free. So I mean, I would come into work some days and there would be another English teacher, and it was basically usually the same story. I'm I'm a housewife, my husband's a doctor or whatever, and I just need something to do to kill time. So I'm doing your job for free. And that felt good, right? It's like, you're doing this job, you're trying to make money to support your family. And someone else is just like, I do your job as just a hobby, which I can't even believe that's legal. But it was bad enough that I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this ALT thing anymore. I'm gonna stick it out to the end of this contract, and then I'm gonna find something else. And this school, this company actually put me at a school where, man, this school was like dying. Like there weren't as many students in the area. There weren't as many kids. So I'm like, they would do things like in the hallways. They didn't turn on the lights, so like these hallways were just dark. They would only have the lights on like in the few classrooms that they had, and those classrooms were spread out in like the corners of the school. So like the students wouldn't even mingle in between classes. It was just okay, sixth grade is on the top floor, all the way to the right of the corridor. The other sixth grade classes all the way to just depressing. And I've never been shown as much disrespect as I was at this place. I mean, like, they would do things like the homeroom teachers would go and have a meeting. And they was like, oh, yeah, Kevin, you can just wait in the teacher's room while we go do our meeting. And they would, like, turn off the lights in the teacher's room, like, while I was sitting there. I just hated it. So, like, on my last day, which, by the way, the company never bothered to tell the school that it was my last day there. I'm like, all right, well, this is my last day. Thank you very much for, this year. Actually, I don't thank you for this year. I would say that you treated me like garbage, but honestly, I've seen the way that you treat your garbage, and it's much better than the way you treat me. You separate everything. It's all recycling. You take care of the garbage. You treated me worse than garbage. Goodbye. And everyone kind of gets up and they're like, oh, it's your last day. Oh, we have to see you to the door. Thank you so much. I'm like, really? Now? And I just kind of, and just left. Very unprofessional. Shouldn't have done that. Don't feel bad about it. So that was the end of my time as an ALT. I then went to work for the worst place I have ever worked in my entire life, and I've worked in fast food and retail. I worked for an international school in Yokohama. Everything about this job was terrible. It was like 10 or 12-hour days, 5 or 6 days a week. The owner had the entire place rigged with cameras, including cameras he didn't tell people about, like the one in the room where the female teachers changed their clothes. He would watch these cameras constantly when he wasn't there, and if anyone did anything he did not like, you would immediately get a phone call of him just screaming at you. One time he called me from Russia just to yell about some shit. I still, every time I hear a phone ring at work, I like freeze up a little bit. I have fucking PTSD from this job. Also, one of the only jobs I've ever outright, like, quit. He tried to, he would always try to intimidate me, which was weird, because, we worked out, but he was smaller. So I remember one time I was talking about an issue with one of the students, and he kind of just goes, "You don't know what you're talking about," and turns around and walks away. And I grabbed him by the shoulder and spun him back around, and I was like, something about people in Japan, they're very polite, so they think that they can just say whatever they want without consequence. They're wrong. And he's just like, and then he just scurried out the door. This other time there was like some minor issue with like one of the kids' homework, and he just starts like just screaming at me, just like, "Dah!" And he finishes, and I'm like, I'll tell you what, why don't we go outside, away from the children, away from these cameras. You can say what you just said again, and I will respond appropriately. And he just turned pale, and he's like, no, that's fine. In fact, I've got something to do. I've got to go. So he let me. Would you like me to walk you out to your car? And he's like, no, that won't be necessary. So we got into a bit of an altercation a few months after that, where I was trying to bend the rules a little bit to keep a student from getting abused by his parents. And he didn't like that. And finally he just starts like pointing his finger in my face, like, do your job. And I just kind of went blank for a second, and I'm just like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to right now? And I just started walking towards him. And he's just like, you know what? I'm not going to renew your contract. I was like, I'm not going to renew my contract. And he ran away. So we decided, I'm not going to be working there again from the next semester. I went out, found myself a new job in a couple of days, as I do. And he still kept trying to like badger me about stuff. And he's like, oh, if I was trying to raise a family and didn't have a job, I'd be more worried about it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Actually, I quit. Like, I'm done. Here's my notice. He's like, well, what about graduation? I was like, I don't care. I'm out of here. He tried to hire my replacement in front of me. The last time I saw him was like right before, a week or two before I left. Because I still gave, my full month notice. Like a week or two before I left. He came in to sign the new guy to a contract. He was drunk. He passed out on the mat that the kids, listen to stories on. And he's like, whoa. And I was like, yeah, while you're down there, I don't want to be subtle about this. Once I'm gone, I never want to see you again. If you see me, turn around and walk away. And if I see you, run. And yeah, he never came back to work while I was there. So that sucked. Prior to that job, I would get comments on like my social media, like, Kevin, how come you never age? Like you look the same as you did, 10 years ago. Wow. After working at this job, I aged. I got those 10 years back and more. Awful. Brings us to the job I'm doing now, which is another eikaiwa, but this time it's for babies up through retirees. They have classes for babies, toddlers, kindergartners of different ages, elementary school students, junior high school students, adults, just anything. Programming. I'm teaching programming at this place. And the money is good. The vacation time is basically included in the schedule. Like, you can't take elective days off, and you don't really get sick days, which, again, I'm not entirely sure how that's legal. But, again, the overall thing is good. Met some really nice people at this place. The owners are very nice. The teachers are very good, very qualified. And it's just an overall good place. So, I guess that's my happy ending for work. So to bring it all back, if you're looking for a foot in the door and you're outside of Japan, I would say that your best bet is to look for an ALT job and have a lot of money saved up, because you won't get your first paycheck until the end of the month after you start. If you are already in the country, maybe you've got the ALT job and now you're looking for something else, I would suggest looking for an eikaiwa or a juku, which is similar to an eikaiwa, but it's more, I'd say, goal-oriented. Like the goal of most jukus is passing tests rather than just conversation. So yeah, if you're looking to come from abroad, look for an ALT job or one of the Eikaiwas that hires from overseas. I want to say Eon does it, Eon and Amity. Otherwise, Jet Program, Interac are the big ones that hire from overseas. And be flexible, be yourself, have fun with it, be confident when you come to the interviews. Maybe not arrogant, but confident. Try to show that you want to have fun with this, that you want to help people. That's about it. That's all the jobs that I have done here since coming to Japan, 15 years ago. Some were very good. Some were nightmares that haunt me to this day. And this place I'm at now I've been here now for almost 5 years, and very few major complaints. Once you get here and you get that foot in the door, you get the visa, you get everything like that, then there are other opportunities to pursue, things like college teaching, or, again, programming is a big thing going on right now for students to get into. It is possible, it is doable, it is a lot of work. If someone tries to tell you that it's easy, they were probably even luckier than I was. But that is going to do us for today. Everybody, I am going to finish up my Rainbow Mountain blend and head off to work. So thank you very much. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and happy hobbying.